On this episode of Living Your Best Life, I'd like to introduce a licensed mental health counselor with Total Life Counseling from Dallas, Texas. She's worked with the NBA, she's worked with Major League Baseball, and she's helping families all over the country. My friend, Dr. Jada Jackson. I want to introduce you to some of my friends who are going to share some relevant issues that we all go through. See, when you hold it inside, it's like a volcano. And sooner or later it erupts. I want you to know that there is hope. And if you're going through a hard time, you're not alone. The more you see your dreams and goals, the more likely you are to take action towards them and be accountable. I am back with my buddy, Dr. Jada. And Dr. Jada, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being on our show, Living Your Best Life. You know, I've been doing schools now for 13 years, presenting at schools, and we do about 250 events a year. So we meet thousands of kids, and we get about 100 messages every day from students, and most of the letters are beautiful about how it changed or maybe even saved somebody's life. Yeah, but we get so many letters from students that are battling depression, anxiety, and of course, the worst case, those kids that have suicidal thoughts. And we've seen this explosion in this area. And I know it's something you're very familiar with, something you deal with, and something you help a lot of people with at your counseling center in Dallas. And I want to just kind of talk to you a little bit about that on how, if you meet someone that is going through depression, I know there's all different types of depression as far as what everyone goes through something different, or the way people react or respond to something could be totally different. But when you meet with and let's talk about students for now, okay? Because that's what I'm dealing with. When you meet with a student and they're going through depression and possibly have suicidal thoughts, what is something that you can share with them, or how do you go about diagnosing what can be done next? Because there's such a gamut of different information out there. Yeah.
And you're so right, Mark, because again, we live in the age of technology, and there's so much information at our fingertips. So I think it is so important, especially for moms and dads and caregivers, to really know the symptoms of depression. Now, if I can, Mark, I want to give two different scenarios. The first one would be just certain behaviors that a child may be experiencing if they're depressed. And then I would like to give the actual symptoms of depression so that a child or their parents would be able to be able to notice it. So again, smartphone addiction is now becoming a huge issue. Kids becoming addicted to smartphones, addicted to gaming, and addicted to all things virtual. Oftentimes, children are hiding behind those devices and sinking deeper and deeper into depression, and you may not even know it. Of course, if you notice that a child is engaging in some form of substance abuse, you want to look a little deeper into that. And one of my biggest things that I work with children is poor self-concept and low self-esteem. If you notice that your child is highly insecure, then there are some issues there, and it could be that the child is depressed. You want to look at that. And then finally, if they have acts of rage or they're violent in any way and their behavior changes, you want to make sure to address that. So when we're looking at more specific symptoms of depression, and Mark, I think if I could very briefly say what depression is versus anxiety, because there's some overlap there. And I think that it's important for everyone to be able to understand that because there's overlap of symptoms in depression and anxiety, sometimes you may not know exactly what you're dealing with. But I like to give the analogy of driving in a car, and if you're looking in your rear view mirror and you're looking behind you and you're thinking about all of the things that happened to you, all of the things that you're ruminating about and you're just, so sad about, and you can't quite get over certain things. That's kind of like depression. It's just a really deep sadness and regret filled situation where you don't have hope to look forward. Let's just say, Mark, that we're driving in that same car, but this time, instead of looking in the rearview mirror, we're looking 2, 3, 4, 5 miles ahead, wondering what's taking place or what's going to take place or what's going to happen up ahead. In other words, am I going to graduate, or is she going to like me, or is this group going to accept me, or am I going to make the cheerleading squad or the football team, whatever that is. So that's anxiety, it's worry, and it's fear. And I always say it's best if you can stay in the present. So now, what do the symptoms look like? For depression, it would be the deep sadness, as I've mentioned, the irritability and anger, and those are also some of the symptoms for anxiety. And then it could be just a change in your eating and sleeping patterns. It's the same for anxiety. It could be you becoming restless and not really able to concentrate or focus. Believe it or not, it's the same with anxiety. And so I know that can be a little complicated, but again, all of those symptoms, they do overlap. However, with depression, if someone becomes very drained, very tired, hopeless, and they have suicidal ideation, then more than likely they're depressed.
That's a great analogy. We deal with a lot of kids that have suicidal thoughts, and the one thing we really stress is open up about it. It's like when you hold something inside, it's like a volcano. And sooner or later, the volcano can erupt. So we always encourage students to talk to a trusted adult, a counselor, a psychologist, your doctor, whatever it is, but don't hold it inside. You're not alone. I mean, we are meeting so many young people they're going through or have gone through these same things. But when they talk to someone, especially someone like you, Dr. Jada, that understands the symptoms, understands what needs to be done, they feel so much better. And the good thing is that often the kids that have come through this, they're a light to someone else. One of their friends is going through a hard time, and they become a light in the darkness. And I love that analogy of driving in a car. That's really good. One more thing I want to ask you about, and this is something that I see a lot of. Many kids I meet are on medication, and a lot of them have started at a very young age. Talking to Jim today, Jim West, one of his things, which I really applaud, I watch a lot of his videos, he gets these kids off medication through proper diet and so on, But I often wonder why, like if a parent takes their child to a doctor and the doctor says, well, I need to prescribe this Xanax or whatever the medication may be, wouldn't you suggest maybe getting a second or maybe even a third opinion? It can't hurt, because once you put a child on medication, they're often on medication for a long time. And it's really sad because everybody's bodies are so different. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against medication. I'm just about, if we could live without it, it'd be much better to get through life without medication, through proper diet and different channels like that, counseling or whatever it would take.
Absolutely. And, and Jim's like one of my favorite people. I think you know that, but he is so good at making sure that he offers an alternative for medication. And Mark, we have to remember that kids, they're still biologically developing. So when you introduce a foreign chemical, is that going to change the brain? Is that going to alter personality? Will it, I believe all of those things come into play when we medicate children. However, when do you medicate children, and is there ever a reason to? Well, of course, there are some children who are born into the world with certain defects, or they're born into the world with, you've heard it said drug babies and things like that. Well, again, more complications in the world of mental health and biology, but there are some times when medication is needed. I don't believe that medication is a solution for not teaching children emotional management and social skills. I believe that if we would teach emotional intelligence starting in kindergarten, we would have children who are more emotionally regulated. We don't even think about what it means to manage anger or to manage jealousy or to manage embarrassment. We have one response, anger, and that is unhealthy. So we have, adults walking around being bullies and being aggressive because they've never learned to manage a healthy conversation to express what they're feeling. So that is where a therapist comes in. That's mostly what I do. And I believe, as a cognitive behavioral therapist, I believe that what you think is what you feel is what you do. But when I was in grad school and they said, well, you have to choose a theoretical orientation, I took mine from scripture, which is Romans 12:2, which says, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Well, that's what we should do.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, what's the best way to do that? We have to identify the faulty thought process, and then we're able to shift or understand our emotion, and then we learn to regulate. And I feel that we don't teach children that, and I want it so much to be able to implement that into the school system in some way, but there's no funding for those type of programs.
It's so difficult to get a new program into schools these days. It's like we've been doing the same thing for a long time, and it's broken, and there needs to be change. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you, Marc.